The GameShell from Clockwork, a Game Boy-like device, but what exactly is it? What exactly does it do? And how does this little guy hold up as a retro gaming handheld? Alright, before we get into exactly what the GameShell is, don't forget to let me spend my money so you don't waste yours by hitting that subscribe button. Now, the GameShell from Clockworks is a modular portable gaming console. It's open source, so we all know what open source means. You can mess with the operating system, you can change stuff, tweak it. You can also program your own games with this device, but it is modular. You have to put this guy together yourself. When it first originally came, it was in pieces. I had done a unboxing and build video, which you can find up here. Click on that link, you can go check that out if you'd like to watch this video in all its entirety. I will have a link to that in the description down below, and also at the end of this video you will be able to click on the link and check out that build. It came in pieces, as I said, and the first piece was this faceplate. Now, when you backed it on Kickstarter, because this device was a Kickstarter, and the only way right now to have gotten your hands on one of these was to be a backer of that Kickstarter. You were able to choose different color faceplates. Now, I went with white because I just think it has that old 90s retro gaming PC look. I personally always loved the tall white towers. Now, there are 5 modules inside of here. Now, before I go ahead and take all these modules out, I will say the first thing that I do not like is where the ribbon cable is located for the screen. If you continuously take this faceplate off and remove these modules, at some point that thing is going to get snagged and destroyed. Luckily enough, since it's modular, I'm pretty sure you can probably purchase a new one from Clockwork. But you have 5 different modules. You have the screen, which is a 320 by 240 pixel LCD. Now, like I said, all of this was in pieces. You had to put every single piece together. You have the keypad, which there goes that D-pad. That D-pad's always falling out. You have the speaker module right here. Speakers are fairly loud now on some games. If you put this thing up to its full volume, which you will hear when we do some gameplay, it does get a little choppy. You also have the battery module right here, which this is a 3.7 volt 1050 milliamp battery. It does last fairly long unless you're playing PlayStation games, which is going to be more hardware intensive, which will probably deplete the battery a little faster than some of your 8 and 16-bit games. And you have the main board here. Now, the main board, which is your Clock Pi, is powered by a quad-core 1 GHz Cortex-A7 CPU. It has a Mali 400 GPU. It has 512 megabytes of RAM, and it has built-in Wi-Fi. Let's go ahead, get this guy back together. Okay, let's take a look at some of the buttons on here. You have your A, X, Y, and B, which is the Xbox layout. You have your traditional D-pad here. You have a start and select, which also acts as the up and down volume rockers when you hit the shift button. You have a menu button as well, which will bring you right back to the home screen of the GameShell. On the side here, these are just used to hold the case together. They have no other real function. They do give, I believe, the GameShell a cool look. On the top here of the main board, you have a micro USB, headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter, and you have the power button here. Other than that, there are no other ports around the side of the GameShell. Let's go ahead, turn this guy on, check out the menu system, which honestly I think is really cool. And here is your menu system. You have your settings here. In the settings, you have airplane mode, power option, you have Wi-Fi settings, the sound value. But going back to that Wi-Fi setting, I found an issue there. Like, it seems to keep disconnecting from the Wi-Fi. Now, that might be my Wi-Fi because it pretty much sucks, but it does get annoying at times, especially when you're trying to get emulators on here and you need the Wi-Fi for that. You have the sound volume, you have your backlit brightness, your storage. Let's get closer. You have the time zone, you have updates, about, power off, and the button layout, which, like I said, is Xbox compatible. Next in the menu, you have retro games. When you originally get this, you're only going to have MAME, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo. The Genesis here, I know guys, it has a Kirby logo at the time when I was putting this Genesis emulator on here and making my tutorial video, which will be up here. You can click that and see how I got the Genesis emulator on here. I didn't have a Genesis image. That will change in the future. I also put the PlayStation emulator on here, which I didn't make a video to that, but there will be a link in the description down below to my website, reviewsbythisguy.com, where I go through all the steps it took for me to get this PlayStation emulator on here. The one that you do get on RetroArch, which we'll talk about in a minute here, didn't seem to work, so I had to go get PCSX rearmed off an external website, and I used that. And I also have the Super Nintendo emulator that I put on here as well. Let's check out the rest of the menu here. That Bomberman game was not there originally. I had to get that on myself. I am going to have another video in the future for getting Duke Nukem on here. I'm going to go ahead and try that. If you're interested to see that video, do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And join some of the social medias down below to keep informed of that. You have Cave Story, which was originally on here. You have a music player. You have the power off, which you can reboot or shut down. And you have RetroArch, which is the network app that allows you to download different emulators, different cores, stuff for the actual GameShell. It also allows you to change settings and whatnot. You have Tiny Cloud, which I'm not connected to the Wi-Fi, but if you are connected to the Wi-Fi, that will allow you to see your IP address for your GameShell and the username and password, which the username and password I believe is the same for all GameShells, and that's CPI. And then you got a version of free Doom. Honestly, was the reason why I even backed this in the first place. Just seeing Doom run on a handheld got me overly excited. Let's go ahead and check out some of the emulators on here and see how this thing handles them and how gameplay is on it. Alright, let's go into retro games. Let's start out with the Genesis emulator. And man, I really got to change that logo, although Kirby looks pretty good there. Let's go ahead. Now, this emulator does horrible at playing Sonic. It is playable, but it just seems to be choppy with the audio and sometimes have a slowdown, which, why don't I just show you? And as you see, the speakers are fairly loud. As you can see, it got choppy right there. I'm probably in the future going to go ahead and change the emulator and see if that solves the problem. But as you can see, it is experiencing some slowdowns. The audio is horrible. But it seems like a lot of things have issues with Sonic. I've actually played some other handhelds that couldn't handle Sonic either. Let's go ahead and check out another game. Let's go ahead and check out Splatterhouse, which honestly, funny enough, the first time I ever played Splatterhouse was actually on this GameShell, and it's Splatterhouse 3. And honestly, this emulator seems to handle this game pretty well. But as you can see, the audio is a little crackly when it's up at full volume. But the game itself functions real well. I don't see any real slowdown to it. It's actually a really good game. I'm really upset that I've never actually played it when I was a kid. Definitely something I'm going to have to look into playing the whole way through in the future, probably on an episode of We Play. I don't actually have a physical copy of this game, which is unfortunate. I'm definitely going to go pick one up. Just I know on the Turbo Graphics this game's going for at least 50 to 60 bucks, if not more. Let's go ahead and get out of the Sega emulator and let's check out some Game Boy Advance. Anytime you play a Nintendo console, you have to go ahead and get Donkey Kong going. Wow. I can't believe I just died there already. Playing beyond the screen is not easy. That is sad. Let's see if I can stop dying here. Anyway, as you can see, the game plays perfectly fine. The emulation is pretty decent. Let's go ahead and try Dark Arena, which is sort of a, well, sort of, it is a Doom clone. But as you can see, at full volume, these speakers do get a little, they do break up a little. I will tell you, it's not easy to play this game when you're looking through your cell phone or your camera. And it's a whole lot easier to play a game like this with a mouse. That's actually the first time I've died in this game. That was a hardware pusher on the Game Boy Advance, a 3D game. Let's go ahead, load up the PlayStation emulator. Let's play some Marvel vs. Capcom. Now there's one thing I do want to talk about while this loads. When you were backing, this was an extra option. It's called the light key. This goes on the back and it hooks into the keypad. These are extra buttons that you can program to like your L1, your R2, your R1, your L1. And that will come in handy with the PlayStation emulator. I don't have it hooked up now. I don't think I'm necessarily going to be playing PlayStation games on here, but it is an option. So I will play it to the best of my ability without those extra buttons, which means I won't be able to do any specials in this game. But I just want to show you that it does function, and it is cool that this little guy, this GameShell from Clockworks, plays PlayStation, which is one of my favorite consoles. Bomberman, a game that I had to install myself. Now if I can actually see myself, there I go. I do feel like at times this game does get stuck with this D-pad, which is kind of annoying. I'm gonna die now. Yep, I got myself stuck, but either way, there goes Bomberman or Mr. Boom, whatever they want to call it. Let's try out one more game before we start. Before I go into my final thoughts about this guy and talk a little bit about what it takes to get emulators on here, let's go ahead and play some free Doom, of course. The one reason why I bought this in the first place is that it plays DOS games. You can run DOSBox on this. I mean, come on, it's kind of cool to have Doom in a handheld form, although it did release on the Game Boy Advance. And it's far better to play on PC, but still, nonetheless, it's cool that I can probably get Commander Keen on here from DOS. I mean, Jazz the Jackrabbit. And have some of my favorite old retro DOS games on the GameShell. Well, what are my overall thoughts of the GameShell? I love it. I mean, everything about the GameShell excites me. The fact that I can play my old retro games now, yes, you can do that on a lot of other things like a Raspberry Pi, an Odroid, and other handhelds that are on the market. You can even mod a PSP or a PS Vita to do the same. The emulation on the GameShell is pretty good. I only seen one issue, and that was with Sonic. And honestly, I think that was the emulator itself and not the actual GameShell. But the thing that sets this guy aside from all the other handhelds is one, just the cool factor that it's modular. I put this together myself. Now the other cool thing about this guy being modular is if anything in here decides to go bad, the battery, the screen, the keypad, all of those can be replaced individually, and all it takes is to open this, take that module out, put the new module in, which I'm sure at some point on GameShell's website you will be able to buy these modules individually, and at some point each of these modules will probably be able to be used as a standalone device. Battery will probably be able to be used as maybe, let's say, a power bank. The speaker itself, I have seen this on their website and the Kickstarter be used as a standalone Bluetooth speaker, so that's kind of cool. So there are some benefits to having a modular, open source, handheld gaming device. If you know what you're doing, if you have a little programming background, you can mod this yourself, and you can also program your own games via Python or C++. This thing has a learning curve, and it's not just about fun and games, it's also about the excitement of actually learning. I've learned a lot since I've been messing with the GameShell. I've learned a lot of command line, which I haven't used in years, and I've learned a little bit of programming. Now, yes, in this review I didn't show anything, but in the future I would like to try to sit down and create my own game, even if it's something really simplistic. Now, some of the issues that I did see with it at full volume, the speaker does get a little crackly. This D-pad does seem to slide around a lot, which can tend to get annoying. And this light key, it seems that the buttons do get stuck and are stiff at times, and that's annoying that I haven't used this a whole lot. Overall, the GameShell is fun. It's a great learning experience. Now, like I said, you could only get this if you backed the Kickstarter. At some point, I don't know when that time is, they will be releasing the GameShell to the market. Let's hope they don't wait too long. If you liked what was contained in this video, as always, hit the thumbs up. Consider sharing amongst your friends and the rest of your social media. And don't forget to continue to let me spend my money so you don't waste yours by hitting that subscribe button.